Okay, so I'd like to speak today about a topic they asked me to speak about today at the radio Kol Barama. I speak on that radio every week, and today's topic they asked me, it's a radio in Israel. And today the question they asked, it's a halakha question of whether, it's an interesting question they came up with, you know, that they try to draft now all the yeshiva boys. So they had an interesting idea of whether a yeshiva boy could dress up like an Arab and claim that he's an Arab, he's a Muslim, and this way the police is not going to draft him, right? Because they don't draft Muslims, they don't need enemies to fight with our enemies. So therefore, it's an idea. Obviously, it's not a practical idea, but it's an interesting thing that we need to acquire. Concerning us, it could also be implemented. If a person, yesterday we spoke about going to trips at dangerous places. So you go to a dangerous area, sometimes you come across people that don't like Jews, and sometimes you end up in a place that's extremely and you have over there people that want to hurt the Jews, and and you can't dress the way you want to dress at your neighborhood. So that means that you can't dress with a jacket like this and a white shirt because you recognize right away it's a Jew, even if you put a baseball cap. And you definitely can't wear a yarmulke in such a place. And sometimes they'll even ask you, Inte Yahud? So what are you supposed to say? If you say yes, you're in a real danger. You say no, is that permitted? Api halakha. So let's see. Let's go tackle one thing at a time. Let's talk about, first of all, changing the way you dress. So in such a place, you're driving in your car, you end up in the wrong neighborhood. Could be in Israel also. You end up in an Arab village. You dress up like this, you're gone. It's a lynch. But you have near you all other clothing in a bag. So right away you change. You put a sweater. You put something that looks not very Jewish, or even you put a kafia on you. Can you put a kafia? Can you put things that you put up a flag of Palestine with the red and green? Can you do that? So Shulchan Aruch in Yoreh De'ah Kuf Nun Zayin says, אם כדי שלא יכירו שהוא יהודי משנה מלבושו בשעת הגזרה מותר כיוון שאינו אומר שהוא עקום. You're allowed to change your clothing in the time of the gzera, which means even in the time of gzera, but doesn't have to be in the time of gzera, because the mashmut of the Shulchan Aruch is in time of gzera, which means that the Goyim made a decree that you're not allowed to practice Judaism. You have to convert to their religion. So in the time of Gzerah, it's much more strict. We're not allowed even to change our laces. That's how the halakha says. The time of Gzerah, you're not allowed to change any minhag, anything. Definitely not a mitzvah, not anything. Even not a minhag. If Am Yisrael, let's say, wear certain laces on their shoes, you're not allowed to change those laces. That's in the time of Gzerah. So over here it says that you're allowed to change in the time of Gzerah, and even when it's not a Gzerah, the Shach says whether it is Gzerah or it's not a time of Gzerah, still you're allowed to change. Why are you allowed to change? What's the idea over here? If you take a look at the source of the halakha, it's the Trumot Adeshen. Trumot Adeshen is the source of the halakha of the Shulchan Aruch in Kuf Nun Zayin, and he brings down that it's not forbidden only. When is it forbidden to change your clothing? Only if they know you, if the Goyim know you, and they see that you change your clothing because you're trying to be like them. Which means it's like admitting to their religion. If you're doing something that appears to the Goy that you're admitting to their religion, that is where it is forbidden. That's where you're not allowed to do. But if you're not doing that, they don't know you, and you're changing your clothing, nobody knows anything, you're just camouflaging your identity, so that's permitted. That's not asur. Nafka mina for us. That's exactly what we're saying right now. You end up in the wrong neighborhood. You right away change your clothing. That's permitted. That's not a problem. Not only that, a person must do that to save his life. Otherwise, he's bringing himself into a real danger. Yesterday we mentioned a Sefer Hasidim that says that one that starts fights or ends or gets into a place that he might be fighting with others and they hurt him or they kill him, chas v'shalom, he's going to be judged for his death because he shouldn't have brought himself to a danger. There's such a concept. You can't say, some people say, you know what, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die. If it was decreed for me, if Hashem decided, maktub hek, that a person should die, so he's going to die. What are you going to do? But over here you see that it's not like that. The Sefer Hasidim explains that it's not like that. It's all over the Mefarshim, the Gemarot, that one is not allowed to bring himself into a makom sakana. Yesterday we spoke about this in length. If you bring yourself into a danger, whether it is a place of a danger, or you get into fights, or go to places that you might get into a fight, you have to avoid those things. This is not something that's unavoidable. If you did everything normal, you walk down the street in a safe neighborhood, and something happens, that's already gzera mishamayim. Okay? So that's the first nafkamina for us, that a person is allowed to change his clothing. Lechatchila, you have a flight, let's say, to Israel, and the stop is in Jordan. Don't look the way you want to look in the yeshiva. Change your clothing beforehand. At the stop, make sure that you look as a regular tourist, nothing don't make it obvious. Secondly, can you take off your kippah? So, taking off your kippah and putting a baseball cap or whatever it is, there's no problem at all. Your head is covered. But can you just have a rosh meguleh? You go without any head covering. You end up in a place. You go to Manhattan and you come out of the train station and you in the middle of a Palestinian demonstration. Now what? You want to be beat up? What? So you take off your kippah, you put it in your pocket. Can you do that? So first, let's get to the idea. What is the obligation to have a kippah? It's Gemara in Shabbat, Kuf Nun Vav Amud Bet. The Gemara over there says that the astrologers told the mother of Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak that her son will grow to be a thief. He was a little kid. And they told her, your son we see in the astrology that your son will grow to be a thief. So she took that very seriously, and she told him that he should have a cover on his head. Never take off the cover from your head. Why? The cover on the head, it brings to Yirat Shamayim. That's very, very important. Therefore, he always kept his head covered. One time, he was sitting under a tree, and the head covering fell. The yarmulke fell. Well, I don't know if it was a yarmulke, but let's say it was a kippah. It fell. He picked up his head, and he saw a date tree, and he really had a desire to take one of those dates, and it would be stealing. Right away, he held himself strong, and he understood that this is the reason his mother always made sure that his head would be covered. So we learn from here that there's an inyan to have your head covered, to walk with a kippah, with a hat, whatever it is. Okay, but that inyan is midat chasidut. This is how the poskim bring down. Chacham Ovadia is posek like this, that it's midat chasidut. He brings like that. The Igrot Moshe brings down that it's a midat chasidut. Really, there's machloket. What's the obligation of having a kippah? The Rambam writes that the idea of a kippah is in order that a person should in Moreh Nevuchim he says that he should recognize as something above him, something on top of him, and therefore the Shekhinah is on top of him. That what brings the Yirat Shamayim. That's what he writes in Moreh Nevuchim. In Ilchot Deot on Yad HaChazakah he writes that the purpose of a yarmulke is for tzniut, modesty. A person that walks with a kippah feels more modest than a person that walks without. That's how he brings down. So Lemase, this is what we explained before, it's midat chasidut. The Taz explains differently. The Taz says that today it's not anymore midat chasidut. It's not something that is extra that you want to do. It's a nice minhag, it's a nice custom to do, but rather it's an obligation. Why? Because he says that we must not do what the goyim do. בחוקותיהם לא תלכו. And the goy, whenever he reaches a place, right away, if he has a hat, he takes it off. This was the custom of the goyim. They came to church, they took off the hat. They came to a court house, they took off the hat. They came to a meeting, they took off the hat. It was not just for comfort, it was the minhag. This was something that they did, that respect, whatever it is, but they had to do that. It's not something. So since they are taking off their hat, we must cover the hat, cover the head, and keep the hat on. That is what the Taz says. Therefore, it's an obligation. It's a chiyuv, not something that is only midat chasidut. Chacham Ovadia holds differently. He says that even if you hold it's midat chasidut, the way we explained before, but today, kippah demonstrates something different. Today, kippah demonstrates of whether you are religious or not. Those that are religious usually wear kippah, and those that are not religious usually don't wear kippah. So therefore, you are identifying yourself with a kippah as somebody who's shomer Torah mitzvot, or somebody who's yireh shamayim, somebody who believes in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who believes in the Torah Kedosha. And if you take off your kippah and you walk without a kippah, you're identifying yourself as somebody who's not. Right? Now it's not a solid rule, but this is normally the way it is. And therefore, Chacham Ovadia says you're not allowed to walk without kippah for that reason. You're not allowed to demonstrate yourself, to show yourself as somebody who doesn't keep the Torah. There is such a concept of chashad, marit ayin. You're not allowed to do things that appear to be a avera, a sin. So that would be one of the, under that category. You're not allowed to walk without a kippah for that very reason. Okay, so this is how Chacham Ovadia says. Now, coming back to us, of whether a person is allowed to take the kippah off at a dangerous place, there is a tshuva in the Igrot Moshe. When Moshe Feinstein was asked like this, there was somebody that needed a job. You know, in the time of Moshe Feinstein, it's known that the Jews that came to America, they had a very, very hard time getting a job. Especially if they were shomer Torah mitzvot, they keep Shabbat. It was known that they would work from Sunday until Friday. That's it. The boss used to tell them, if you're not on Friday, if you don't come tomorrow, don't come on Sunday. So on Sunday they had to apply for a new job. So it would be very hard to get a job. And this question came to him the following way. Somebody needed to go to an job interview, and they told him that if you come with a kippah, you're not getting the job. You're not getting the job. So Moshe said that for hefsed mamon, for losing money, for losing a job, you don't have to put on a kippah. Kippah is only minhag chasidut, as we explained before, according to his understanding. It's only a minhag chasidut. And for minhag chasidut, you don't have to go and stretch to lose money, to lose your job, to lose your livelihood. In back then, again, having a job is means that you bring bread to the table. If you don't have a job, you don't bring to the family bread to the table. It would be very, very crucial. So therefore, it would be permitted. According to that tshuva, we can easily learn that the same idea would be applied to our scenario. If for a job you're allowed to take off your yarmulke, definitely allowed to take off your yarmulke at a dangerous place. Now, just to mention, the Be'er Moshe, of Moshe Stern, felt that even though it's permitted maybe to take it off temporarily as a one-time thing, but you can't keep on doing it on regular basis. You're not allowed to do it on regular basis. So you're not allowed, let's say, to work without kippah, or you're not allowed to stay for a long period of time without kippah. You're allowed for the job interview, but if that means that every day you'll have to work without kippah, it's not permitted. Again, not everybody would agree to that. It depends on the scenario, depends on the need, depends on a lot of things, but those are the shitot. According to what we explained, at least we can take for our halacha that if a person ends up in Manhattan in the middle of a demonstration, he should definitely take off his kippah, put it in his pocket. If he has a baseball cap or something else, he should put that, but otherwise he can walk without a kippah and not show in front of everybody that he's Jewish. Now, let's say he comes out of the train station and he doesn't have a kippah. Right away, he's smart enough to put a kippah in his pocket, and he doesn't have clothing that identify him as a Jew, but they come to him and they see him. A Jew looks like a Jew. It's not going to help you. Your face gives it in. It's not going to help you. So they come and they ask you, Inte Yahud Inte, min when Inte? So what are you supposed to answer? The halacha over there, in the same halacha, Kuf Nun Zayin, it says, Asur le'adam lomar shu oved kochavim kedei shelo yargu. Which means you're not allowed to say that you are Masihi, you are a Goy, you are Muslim, whatever it is. Over here it says Oved Kochavim, but the same thing would be for Muslim. You're not allowed to say that in order that they won't kill you, which means you have over here to give up your life and not say that you're a Goy. So therefore, if they put you on the spot, seems like you should say, no, I'm a Jew. I'm a Jew, that's what you should say. So first we can be medayek, maybe from the Shulchan Aruch, that he says you're not allowed to say that you are Oved Kochavim, which means you don't have to say that you're a Jew. Rav Elyashiv said something interesting. He said that you can say that you're American. You're American. Or you can say that you're Arab. When you say you're Arab, it doesn't mean that you are a Muslim. Arab means just a region of countries. You can say you're American. You're in England. Right? Doesn't mean, if you're American, doesn't mean that it's not a religion. It's just where in a world you're coming from. So that's definitely permitted. But can you say, if they push to shove, they say, you're Jewish or you're not? Can you say that you're not Jewish? Seems from this halakha you have to give up your life and not say it. But Rav Elyashiv in Ashrei Ish, he says that no, this is not the meaning of this halakha. The meaning of this halakha is only if they're trying to convert you. That is when you should say that you're Jewish, and you're not allowed to say that you are Oved Kochavim. If they're trying to convert you, but let's say they're not trying to do that. They're not trying to convert you. Let's say in our scenario, they want to hurt you. So if they want to hurt you, they're not trying to convert you. They're not telling you have to become Muslim or you have to become Christian. Therefore, in such a scenario, you're allowed to say that you're not Jewish. He gives another example. For instance, he says that a person ends up in a hospital, lo alenu, and he knows that if he identifies as a Jew, many places in the world today, unfortunately, we saw the stories in Australia, now in England also, in Britain, they said that they're not treating Israelis are not Jews. So if a person, chas v'shalom, ends up in such a place, it's dangerous. Can he say that he's not Jewish? Or if they ask him, they see him, they say, you eat kosher food? No, I'm not Jewish. Can you say that in order to get a better treatment? Rav Elyashiv says you're allowed to say that in order to get a better treatment. So we got a little bit of an idea that if you end up in such a place and they really push you to say where you come from and who you are, you can get away by saying that you're not Jewish.